Hey, is that folk music that you play there? What is that? How do you call that folk music?
I think it was Studs Terkel who asked Big Bill Brunzi, did he consider his blues music to be folk music? And Big Bill says, well, never heard no horse.
Shake shoe bob shooby doo doo booby doo dow.
Bang! Hot dog!
Don't hesitate. It could be your ticket to a new tomorrow.
All right. The show is Horses Sing None of It. My name is Ralph Litwin. Our guest today is Ellie McCullough. Welcome to the show, Ellie. As you can tell, he's an extraordinary Irish whistle player, and with his PhD in ethnomusicology, no less. So tell us about that tune, Ellie.
Well, actually, that was the very first traditional Irish tune I ever learned, and it'll be coming up my anniversary of learning Irish music. It'll be 30 years.
Wow.
July the 3rd. And I have no idea. I'd been in Ireland. I'd been going to school there for a few months, and that's where I first heard traditional Irish music at the time. Just saw people playing the tin whistle on the street, and at first I thought it was just kind of a toy, you know, just like street musicians. And then I heard people like the chieftains, other people who at the time were really completely unknown outside of the immediate community, and I just, wow, there's some real music you can get out of that. So I already had played sax and recorder and stuff as a teenager, and then I just kind of got into this. And on the 3rd of July, 1972, I just said, I'm going to learn this tune that's been in my head. And it was called Tuaim de Love, which is Gaelic for Give Me Your Hand. And it was an old harp tune from the late 1600s that a Irish harpist had composed, and remarkably still was passed down through the centuries. People still remember it. And it was very popular. It kind of had a revival. Some people had put words to it and were using it to, the words were about basically, you know, peace in Northern Ireland and stop the war and all that. And so it was on the radio a lot for months, and it just kind of sank into my head, and I just picked up the whistle, and just took me like 2 hours to learn the tune. And that was the first Irish tune I ever learned.
All right.
Yeah.
Where did you say you were living at that time?
I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is probably not the most happening place for Irish music at the time. And it's curious because really at the time in America, pretty much only Irish people played Irish music, or first generation, you know, Irish Americans. But then by the end of the decade, that had really changed, and the revival just really started. And now, 3 decades later, I mean, it's all over the world. Literally, I think in every country in the world today, somebody is playing Irish music. I got an email the other night from somebody in Singapore. You know, seriously, and they were not. They were of obviously Singaporean extraction, and they just had heard this music, fell in love with it, and taken up the tin whistle.
Got hooked.
And wanted to play. I literally, Korea, Israel, I mean, all over the world, people are playing this music.
And you hear from them.
Yeah, voices in my head, and it's astonishing. It's astonishing. And it's odd because for folks out there wondering what this is a tin whistle. It's really a simple whistle. There are many makes and varieties these days, but basically it's a metal tube with 6 holes in it. Although these days the instruments are not really made out of tin. A lot of them are made out of plastic, PCV pipe, brass, all kinds of things. And this is one made by a maker up in Nyack, New York, John Sint, who I believe was an engineer in a former life and decided he'd really just rather just make tin whistles all the time, which is what he does. And yeah, folks seeing the show probably would see him around. He teaches dances, I think, at Kaylee's and plays. But this is one he just kind of gave me to try out. Could I do it, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll just see. And you, the viewers, can vote. Whether you want me to keep this whistle for John, or we'll tell him. I think he's in the viewing area, too. This is, I don't know, for some reason, the first few years I played Irish music, that's really all I did. I dropped pretty much everything and just sat down and learned every traditional tune I could find, and that's all I listened to. That's all I did. I didn't have a TV. I mean, it was just like complete isolation. But then, you know, I just started succumbing to the big world of music and you know, being an American after all, growing up with rock and roll and all that stuff. I just started thinking, what if Irish music got blended with other types of music? And then the more kind of world music you hear, you realize how interrelated a lot of these things are. For instance, you take a thing like the Irish jig, which is in 6/8 time. You realize there are 6/8 type tunes. They're a lot like jigs all over the world. For instance, in Mexico, they have a tune called the Wapango, which is, you know, da 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 da. That's a 6/8 tune. That's a jig, man. Any way you want to slice it, that's a jig. They may not know they're doing a jig. And in France, you have the rondeau. That's in 6/8. Tunes in Galicia and Spain, they have a type of tune called the Munera, which I guess roughly in that language means the mountain. So it's some kind of mountain tune. It's a jig. So at a certain point, a number of years ago, I just started taking Irish tunes and just kind of finding other music that was common to them in some way, and then try and just mess things up and, you know, see what would happen. So here's four tunes in 6/8. First one is El Tecolote. It's a Wapango. I heard off a 78 of some Tex-Mex accordion player. Second one is Munera de Fonte from Galicia. Then the third is La Cloche va sonner tout de suite, which I think means the bell is going to ring soon. In French, and then a sixpenny money, an Irish jig. And if you feel like doing the native dances to these, Ralph, go ahead.
Right.
And it's interesting because, like I say, when I first started playing Irish music, you know, it's kind of what if people did, they really stuck to one idiom. And then over the years, really, I think there's been a really great cross-fusion of first Celtic styles and then really styles of music, traditional music all over the world. You just really start to see how everything has overlapped. And you got bands playing African music and Irish music and Caribbean music and all that. And it really kind of works. This is a tin whistle that Michael Burke in St. Louis made. And he's another, I think, retired engineer that just said, I want to make tin whistles. Follow your bliss. And this is made out of something he calls composite, which is kind of plastic and kind of not. It looks like wood. It's very nicely finished. And this is a wedding present he gave myself and my wife. And it's in the key of B, which means I don't get to play it that often because most of this music requires a key of D tin whistle. So it's really good for solo stuff. And has a nice sound to it. And I'd like to play a couple tunes here. One that I wrote is called St. Catherine's Park, which is the park in New York City where I actually first met my wife. Actually, it wasn't where we really met. It's more like where we first kind of dated, you know what I mean? And I know she'll be watching this, so I had to be right about that. And after that is a tune I composed for a bunch of my cousins. I have a lot of relatives that live here in New Jersey, the Mannion family, and they're all around, maybe even in this viewing area. Do we get, is Mountainside?
No,
in this
out of the viewing area,
shucks.
sorry.
Atlantic City?
Too far.
Mount Laurel?
No.
Okay, well,
We're Morris County, Somerset County, and Sussex County.
anyway, I'll show them the video. This is for them, they're for their family. They're a pretty neat bunch of people. And after that is a tune called The Golden Keyboard, which I learned a long time ago from a great Irish fiddler in Chicago, Johnny McGreevy. And it was composed by a great Irish accordion player who lives here in New York still, named Martin Mulhare, that I had never met until about 2 months ago. I was at an Irish Ceilidh in Long Island, just sat down and played, with the other people in the band, and all of a sudden I realized this is a guy whose tune I've been playing all these years. And I had to shake his hand because it's a great one.
Right. We should let folks know how to get in touch with you before
Okay.
we get too far and forget about it.
Okay.
And that's, how do you pronounce that? Feedinista?
Feedinista. Yeah, that's
Feedinista.
actually the name of an obscure album I did a few years ago. And just kind of looked good on the old website.
.tripod.com
Yeah.
or call
That, in fact, is where I live in Woodbridge, New Jersey.
732
Yeah.
636 7743.
Yeah. I'll probably answer. Yeah. Or one of the cats, or my wife, or, whatever. Just speak slowly and distinctly. Yeah, so. Somebody asked me about this flute earlier on in the program. And this was made by another great tin whistle player, tin whistle maker, actually. He does play pretty well, too. Michael Copeland of Philadelphia. And probably if anybody's been on your show that playing tin whistle in the last few years, they probably have had a Copeland whistle at some point. But before he started making whistles, he made flutes, and this is one of the very first 3 he ever made about 25 years ago. And I think the other 2 are lost. So this is kind of like, its own.
A museum piece.
Yeah, kind of. Really it's just wood is called cocobolo wood, which is South American. It's purplish in its native color, but he stained it faux ebony. But, looks good. There's no keys on it. Just wanted it real simple. Just wanted a nice tone. And, it's held up for a quarter century now. Still kicking in there. You got to put oil in it and everything, and I'm not sure how it's going to sound in this type of humidity, but we'll see. So here's a slip jig called a Hills of Tipperary. But the flutes he went on to make are much more elaborate. They have tuning slides and have all kinds of things. And I think he pretty much has gotten back into making some flutes too, along with the whistles. Any questions or?
Any questions from the audience?
Hundreds of tunes. You go on a show and you start wanting to talk about Irish music. There's hundreds of tunes. And they all have stories and folklore behind them. And if they don't, you just make them up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you have an example of the Afro-Celtic?
Well, yeah, I tell you, like I said, I got into fusion music in the late 70s. Started playing with a band that played a lot of Appalachian music called Devilish Mary in Pittsburgh, where I was living. We just had a reunion gig this last weekend at the Mayfair in Allentown. And we would do things like, start out with an Appalachian tune, and I'd play Irish instruments on it, then we'd switch into an Irish reel or something, and it would sound kind of, from Tennessee or something. It was pretty nice. It was really kind of a third stream thing. And then I started making albums that had, all kinds of combinations. And it may be hard to duplicate on just singing here. I guess the closest thing was that medley of jigs I did.
I see.
Yeah, and what do I do for like the Afro Hibernian? I would take blues songs and make them Irish, and take things like Diddy Wah Diddy. My friend Ernie Hawkins, who was here a couple months ago, he would do that, and then I would play a whistle solo that was distinctly flatted, third and seventh. And that is the great thing about these instruments, is that they are really fairly compatible, a lot of the musics. And if you look at, just basic like blues structure, you got your triads, you got your 1 chord to 4 chord to 5 chord. So you have, I mean, obviously that's simplified. There are hundreds of Irish tunes that have the same triad bass structure. Now, instead of being 12 bars in length, they're usually just 8 bars for a section. And the chords don't move in that same progression of 1, 4, 5, although a lot of times they're included. But there's so many Irish tunes that are like, something like that rolling on the ryegrass. I mean, it's, it's blues notes just moved around. So it's conceivable that 100, 150 years ago, I don't know, all these musicians sat around and jammed together. And we're talking before records, before, you know, any real big transmission happened. It just started happening individually. Or maybe not. I don't know. If you could time travel, wouldn't you want to go back to like the you know, like the first time, you know, Bach composed a, you know, one of his pieces, or the first time Turlough O'Carroll, the great Irish harper, like said, she bugs she more, and whipped out the first few notes of that. Or first time somebody sat down and said, okay, this is an Irish reel. This is what it is. It's going to be this, and it's not going to be that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's what I do. I basically these days I kind of return to playing just straight Irish music. If I ever had a few million bucks and, you know, start a band again, I would play all kinds of fusion stuff. But right now, just like to sit and, you know, play with friends and just do tunes. There's a lot of great sessions around in this part of New Jersey. And if people, the best way to really learn Irish music is to see bands like Dicey Riley in live and in the flesh. Go to sessions where you hear people like me just showing up and playing these tunes, and just really learn from the people that do it, because that's how I learned, really. And I was very fortunate at the time. There were a lot of older players that just played the music, and they would just welcome you into their homes, amazingly. You know, I mean, with just say, hi, you know, I like to play Irish music, and they would say, come on in, lad. You know, it's astonishing, really, when you think of it. And they would take out old 78 records and play rare tapes and sit there for hours and teach you music and let you listen. Now it's a little different because it's not such a big, rare thing, I guess, but back then it was pretty neat. So that's how I learned most of my music.
Cool.
Any tunes you want to play? We want to do a duet, I know, with you and I.
Yeah, we got about 5-6 minutes left.
Okay, well, maybe I'll play another tune on the flute. Let's see. This is a reel called Flower of the Flock. Actually, that was the reel of Rio. Holy, sounded suspiciously like I said. I actually don't remember the Flower of the Flock, but my fingers just slid into this other tune, so. That's what happens. You know, you play this music for a long time, and they just don't. You know, when I was learning, and I would ask people the names of tune, and they wouldn't know. I thought, oh man, these people. Talk about senility. God, I hope when I'm that age, you know, like 35, I never. I can't imagine. And here I am. You get one tune mixed up, and maybe that's how the music started. Hard to tell. We're going to do a couple tunes that are definitely cross American and Irish lines. Red-Haired Boy, which is also called Little Beggar Man. There's a song to it. And then you might also go into a popular old-time tune called Over the Waterfall, which you'll find listed as a polka in some Irish music collections in the 19th century called The Dark Girl Dressed in Blue. Who went over the waterfall? I don't know. And I just thought for fun, I would play some Irish percussion instruments, the bones and then the bodhrán. So just kick into it, yeah.
I'm a little beggar man, I've been for threescore more on the little lad of green. I'm known from my feet down to Seguin, and I'm known by the name of Old Johnny Doo. All the trust of going begging is the best, for when a man is tired he can lay down and rest. Beg for a penny if there's nothing else to do, for it to around and back in his old rig-a-doo. on. Out by the barn, slept through the night, and we said nighty man. Holes in the roof, and the rain leaking through, and the cats and the rats, they were playing peekaboo. Who should awaken but the woman at the house? And I was eating in a hell of a whole house. I start to frighten, and she says, boo, now don't be afraid, ma'am, it's only John Dew.
All right.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to have you on
Okay.
the show, Ellie.
Thanks a
We
lot,
got
Ralph.
a little bit, one more tune to play.
Okay. Do you want to do
Over the Waterfall.
try?
Whoops, let me start that again.
Okay, cool.